А сейчас мы постепенно переходим к церемонии вручения почетного доктора МГИМО генеральному директору технического секретариата Организации по запрещению химического оружия господину Ахмету Узюмджю. Сейчас он появится на этой сцене, я буду его торжественно приветствовать. Если вы знаете, Пан Ги Мун, генеральный секретарь ООН, тоже является почетным доктором МГИМО. Предыдущий генеральный секретарь Кофи Аннан, тоже почетный доктор Московского государственного института международных отношений. Бутрос Гали тоже приезжал к нам, открывал модель и тоже является почетным доктором МГИМО. Всего у нас около 50 президентов, премьер-министров, министров иностранных дел и других государственных деятелей, международных организаций, которые были удостоены чести быть почетными докторами МГИМО. Для нас это тоже, конечно, большая честь видеть таких высоких представителей в наших стенах. А вам, я думаю, как участникам международной московской модели ООН, это будет вдвойне приятно. Позвольте мне приветствовать господина Ахмету Узюмджю. Уважаемые гости и участники Московской международной модели ООН 2014 года, уважаемые российские иностранные дипломаты, уважаемые члены делегации Организации по запрещению химического оружия, уважаемые профессора и преподаватели МГИМО. Сегодня мне выпала особая честь представить вам господина Ахмета Узюмджю, генерального директора технического секретариата Организации по запрещению химического оружия. Это глубоко символично, что сегодня именно в рамках международной московской модели ООН мы имеем возможность познакомиться с одним из наиболее видных дипломатов международного уровня, который своей деятельностью способствует разряжению обстановки в таком конфликтном, неустойчивом и противоречивом современном мире. Господин Узюмджю находится в Москве с визитом, во время которого состоится встреча в Федеральном собрании Российской Федерации, в Российском министерстве иностранных дел, в Министерстве промышленности Российской Федерации, а также состоится посещение объекта по уничтожению химического оружия в Удмуртской республике. Возглавляемая господином Узюмджю организация ставит своей задачей полное уничтожение химического оружия на планете. Это оружие может принести неисчислимые страдания людям в тех странах, которые вовлечены в вооруженный конфликт. Но, к счастью, подавляющее большинство государств приняло на себя соответствующие обязательства по уничтожению запасов химического оружия. Российская Федерация приняла активное участие в разработке Конвенции о запрещении химического оружия, которая вступила в силу в апреле 1997 года и стала одним из первых государств, подписавших этот многосторонний документ, а затем и ратифицировавших. Руководящими органами Организации по запрещению химического оружия является конференция государств-участников. Это высший орган, который собирается раз в год. Исполнительный совет, рабочий орган, который, как правило, проводит 3 заседания в год. И технический секретариат, постоянно действующий административный орган. На техническом секретариате лежат обязанности по оказанию помощи конференции и исполнительному совету, выполнение ими своих полномочий, подготовка программ и бюджета, докладов, оказание технической и административной поддержки. Кроме того, техсекретариату поручено осуществление мер проверки, предусмотренных Конвенцией о запрещении химического оружия, а также осуществление контроля и координации работы, связанной с созданием и содержанием постоянных запасов для чрезвычайной и гуманитарной помощи, то есть средств химообнаружения и химзащиты. Штат сотрудников технического секретариата насчитывает порядка 450 человек, из них 17 человек – граждане Российской Федерации. По мере уничтожения в мире основных запасов химического оружия на первый план в деятельности Организации по запрещению химического оружия выходит проблематика нераспространения этого оружия. Участником конвенции сейчас являются 190 государств. 6 стран находятся вне международно-правового поля конвенции. По состоянию на декабрь 2013 года уничтожено порядка 81%, то есть свыше 57 тысяч тонн всех объявленных в мире запасов химического оружия. И в этом большая заслуга Организации по запрещению химического оружия. В 2013 году к конвенции присоединилась Сирия. И вы знаете, какие большие усилия были сделаны дипломатами многих стран, чтобы снизить напряженность вооруженного конфликта в Сирии и начать процесс уничтожения там химического оружия. Эти усилия не остались незамеченными мировым сообществом. В 2013 году за достигнутые успехи в области химической демилитаризации и активное участие в ликвидации сирийского военно-химического потенциала Организации по запрещению химического оружия была присуждена Нобелевская премия мира. И господин Ахмету Узюмджю получил эту премию от лица этой организации. По состоянию на 1 апреля 2014 года в международные воды вывезено около 55% сирийских запасов компонентов и прекурсоров химоружия, определенных для уничтожения за пределами этой страны. И, безусловно, важнейшая роль в этом процессе принадлежит нашему сегодняшнему почетному гостю Ахмету Узюмджю. Ахмету Узюмджю был назначен генеральным директором технического секретариата Организации по запрещению химического оружия в декабре 2009 года на 14-й сессии конференции государств-участников конвенции. И был переизбран на второй 4-летний срок на 18-й сессии в декабре 2013 года. Господин Узюмджю является карьерным дипломатом, имеет ранг чрезвычайного полномочного посла. В течение последних 10 лет представлял Турцию в Совете НАТО, на конференции по разоружению и в других международных организациях в Женеве. Имеет большой опыт в вопросах нераспространения и разоружения. Господин Узюмджю закончил факультет политологии, и он является нашим коллегой даже по образованию, по специальности международные отношения. А специализация внутри этой специальности была государственное управление. Владеет английским и французским языками. Начал свою работу с должностей в посольстве Турции в Вене. В 1982-1984 годах был консулом в городе Алеппо, Сирия. В 1986-1989 годах занимал различные должности в Министерстве иностранных дел Турции и турецкой делегации при НАТО. В 1989-1994 годах сотрудник политического департамента секретариата НАТО, занимался вопросами программы партнерства во имя мира. В 1996-1999 годы возглавлял департамент кадров Министерства иностранных дел Турции. В 1999-2002 год посол Турции в Израиле. В 2002-2004 постоянный представитель Турции при Совете НАТО в Брюсселе. Затем был заместителем госсекретаря Турции по двусторонним политическим вопросам. В круг курирования господина Узюмджю также входила Россия, кроме и других регионов, среди которых Ближний Восток, Азия и Африка. До назначения на пост генерального секретаря технического секретариата Организации по запрещению химического оружия являлся постоянным представителем Турции в офисе ООН в Женеве, а также в других международных организациях в Швейцарии. Господин Узюмджю имеет звание почетного доктора Женевской школы дипломатии и международных отношений, которое было вручено ему в июне 2010 года за достижение в вопросах контроля над вооружениями и разоружения. В январе 2014 года был награжден почетной медалью университета Болоньи в Италии. А сегодня в этой торжественной обстановке в присутствии участников международной модели ООН, в присутствии иностранных гостей и российских дипломатов, профессоров и преподавателей МГИМО, мне особенно приятно объявить о решении ученого совета Московского государственного института международных отношений. Оно звучит так. Решением ученого совета Московского государственного института международных отношений Министерства иностранных дел Российской Федерации за вклад в укрепление мира, развитие международного сотрудничества и запрещение оружия массового поражения господину Ахмету Узюмджю присвоить звание «Почетный доктор МГИМО». Спасибо. Согласно положению о почетных докторах МГИМО, это звание присуждается выдающимся зарубежным государственным, политическим и общественным деятелям, дипломатам, а также ученым, работающим в области международных отношений и внешней политики. Звание почетного доктора МГИМО предоставляет носителю этого титула права, почести и привилегии, установленные законом и обычаем. По поручению ректора МГИМО Анатолия Васильевича Туркунова разрешите мне вручить господину Узюмджю диплом почетного доктора МГИМО. Разрешите предоставить слово почетному доктору МГИМО, генеральному секретарю технического секретариата Организации по запрещению химического оружия господину Узюмджю. Пожалуйста.
Distinguished members of the Russian Foreign Ministry, distinguished professors of МГИМО, Professor Andrei Silantiev, thank you very much for that very warm welcome. I also thank for inviting me to address students coming from 27 countries at this opening ceremony of Moscow International Model United Nations. It's a great honor to receive this degree of honorary doctorate from МГИМО, an esteemed institution for the training of academic and diplomatic staff in the Russian Foreign Ministry. МГИМО has indeed a strong pedigree as one of Russia's leading academic institutions. One glance at the alumni list of МГИМО reveals a veritable who's who of your diplomacy. But that's not all. Your former students also count among their ranks presidents, prime ministers, ministers, UN agency heads, European commissioners, and CEOs. This is an impressive record in just under 70 years, one that attests to the high quality of study offered here. Your institute was founded in 1944 at a time of great hope as the tide of war was being turned, and it trained many a diplomat who subsequently toiled to preserve peace and stability. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate you all with the forthcoming 70th anniversary of МГИМО. The award of the Nobel Peace Prize last year was an extraordinary honor for the OPCW. It's an important recognition of commitment and determination showed by our state parties. And it also remains a source of immense pride for all our staff, past and present. We were especially pleased that the Nobel Committee singled out our extensive efforts to eliminate chemical weapons. In my speech at the awards ceremony in Oslo, I underlined the very tangible nature and results of these efforts. We have recorded what can only be described as prodigious progress towards this end, progress for which the facts speak for themselves. What I want to do here is to account for this remarkable record of success. I also want to point to where we may need to devote more attention to sustain it. Chemical disarmament has had a long and difficult history. It traces its origins in the Hague Convention of 1899, the final act of the Hague Peace Conference, initiated by Tsar Nikolai II and his foreign minister, Count Muravyov, and among the convention's declarations was a specific prohibition against the use of poisonous gases in warfare. The subsequent widespread use of chemical weapons during World War I and its tragic legacy of well over 1 million casualties spurred efforts to achieve a more durable legal instrument. The resulting 1925 Geneva Protocol reinforced the ban on use of chemical weapons, but it failed to address production or stockpiling. The next 6 decades saw stockpiles of chemical weapons soar, especially over the course of the Cold War. Chemical weapons are the worst product of dark science and have killed tens of thousands of people, including innocent civilians, and injured equal numbers in the most gruesome manner conceivable. Half a century passed before efforts to scope out a comprehensive ban commenced, with serious negotiations getting underway in the early 1980s. Devastating use of chemical weapons throughout the Iran-Iraq War focused attention on achieving a treaty that would actually prevent such horrors. The patently inhumane and indiscriminate nature of chemical weapons reached a crescendo in 1987 and 88, when thousands of civilians perished in chemical weapon attacks in Sardash and Halabja. This brought states together to stand against any use of chemical weapons by anyone, and a global society that has advanced in every field of human endeavor could not tolerate such a treacherous method of warfare. The end of the Cold War ushered in a new spirit of engagement and cooperation between former adversaries as negotiations were drawing to a close. This facilitated a high level of ambition in terms of the scope and reach of a global ban on chemical weapons. The Chemical Weapons Convention could also be considered as one of the peace dividends at an early stage of the end of the Cold War. In brief, these factors helped negotiators to weave not only a wide net, but also a very tight one. Each of these factors is reflected in provisions which are unique to the Chemical Weapons Convention when taken together. It was concluded in 1992 in Geneva and entered into force 5 years later in 1997. It's hard to overstate the singular achievement that this represented. To its credit, the international community, through the successful implementation of the Convention, has been able to institute a comprehensive prohibition on chemical weapons. To understand the real impact of the Convention, it's important to consider what it seeks to achieve and how much progress we have made towards established objectives. The first and foremost goal, one that no other international treaty exhibits, is the total elimination under verification of an entire category of weapons of mass destruction. The second objective is to ensure, also primarily through verification, that chemical weapons will not re-emerge. For this purpose, chemical industries in states parties which produce chemicals and precursors that could be used to make chemical weapons are subject to inspections. The OPCW verifies that the production or consumption of relevant chemicals is only for legitimate purposes. In addition, states parties also undertake to provide assistance to other members should chemical weapons ever be used or threatened to be used against them. At the same time, as chemistry is one of the key sectors of the global economy, the Convention seeks to promote cooperation at the international level by encouraging exchange of knowledge and expertise in the field of peaceful uses of chemistry. The Convention is a global treaty. This means a diverse membership. It includes countries possessing chemical weapons and countries with advanced and extensive chemical industry. At the other end of the technological spectrum, we have members who have neither chemical weapons nor industry of any significance, but their contribution to a common and noble purpose is substantial. All are part of the mission to rid the planet from the curse of chemical weapons. Developing countries and countries with economies in transition attach particular importance to the two pillars of the Convention, namely assistance and protection against chemical weapons and international cooperation. As to how the organization has performed in the 16 years after the Convention came into force, can be judged against a number of criteria. The most important and visible accomplishment is the destruction of 82% of the massive chemical weapons stockpiles that were declared to the OPCW. 3 of the 8 possessor countries, Albania, India, and another state party which requests anonymity, have completed destruction of their stockpiles. Libya most recently did likewise, with only some component chemicals remaining to be eliminated, and Iraq is proceeding with a plan to destroy remnants of chemical weapons. The removal of chemical weapons from Syria is underway. The 2 major possessor states, the Russian Federation and the United States, are well on track to achieving their destruction targets in accordance with a revised decision adopted by our member states in 2011. The Russian Federation has reached the level of 78% in destroying its stockpile. This is a very significant progress given the scale and complexity of the operation. This is a very hazardous as well as labor-intensive and costly operation. I look forward to visiting one of the destruction sites together with the members of the Executive Council on Thursday this week and see the progress on the ground. The much talked about Global Zero, which usually refers to the hope pegged to a distant future envisaging a world free from nuclear weapons, is in the chemical area a certainty just around the corner. This is no small achievement by any standards. With regard to inspections at commercial facilities, the organization has conducted over 2,500 industry inspections in more than 80 countries to verify that the production and consumption of relevant chemicals remains confined for solely peaceful purposes. These 2 elements, verification that chemical weapons are being actually destroyed and verification that the industry remains in compliance, represent the regulatory part of the regime, a regime that was constructed from scratch and has proven its efficacy even within the short period of its existence. Similarly, the organization has been no less active in what can be termed as the promotional side of the Convention. In assessing the benefits of the Chemical Weapons Convention regime, it is important to understand that the range of activities relevant to international cooperation that the OPCW is mandated to conduct ensures the continuing support of its large and diverse membership. This also underpins the balanced approach followed by participating countries while drafting the Convention. Having described the key features of the regime, it is also important to understand why it has been successful. The Convention was the outcome of multilateral negotiations based on the principle of consensus. Its conclusion was a result of dedicated work spanning nearly the entire 20th century. It was therefore owned by the international community as a whole. Even those states that are still not members nevertheless joined the international consensus that endorsed the Convention at the UN General Assembly in 1992. In other words, they signaled their acceptance of the new global norm against chemical weapons. The Convention is also regarded as an equitable treaty that creates a balance of obligations and rights and treats all states parties equally. It's immune from charges of discrimination. Apart from being a concrete instrument that provides security to all, the Convention also advances the crucial moral and ethical norms of international law. Chemical weapons are regarded as inhumane. It is difficult to contain their effects, and therefore they are a greater threat to unprotected non-combatants than to a professional army capable of using protective measures. The Convention also represents a unique example of public and private partnership in the field of arms control. The industry verification regime of the Convention owes its success to the cooperation of the global chemical industry. The OPCW, established to implement the Convention, is an intergovernmental body. This means that both day-to-day as well as policy matters depend on how the policy-making organs of the OPCW function. Our member states collectively have consistently displayed a constructive and forward-looking approach. They have always acted in the best interests of the Convention and the mission of the organization. Their adherence to the consensus has not wavered, even in the face of difficult issues. The result is an exemplary multilateral experience that promotes international peace and security. The OPCW Technical Secretariat has also operated with efficiency, dedication, and in a cost-effective manner. Maintaining excellence by the staff and strong sense of accountability to state parties has enabled the Secretariat to maintain high standards of service. Against this background, it becomes quite evident that the international community today stands totally behind the notion that the use of chemical weapons is morally and ethically unacceptable. This brings me to our future challenges, a foremost of which today seems the resurgence of the threat of use of chemical weapons. The use of chemical weapons in Syria last year had been a reminder of such risks and threats. Following Syria's move to join the Chemical Weapons Convention on 14 September, Russia and the United States played a pivotal role in devising a way forward on Syria's chemical demilitarization. The joint leadership displayed by them has been highly appreciated by the international community. For the first time after nearly 3 years of fighting in this country, there was a united approach towards one aspect of the Syrian conflict. The framework agreement concluded in Geneva on 14 September paved the way for a historic decision by the OPCW's Executive Council on 27 September on an accelerated program for eliminating Syrian chemical weapons by mid-2014. This decision was endorsed that same day by unanimous adoption of UN Security Council Resolution 2118. The OPCW was quick off the mark in implementing this program. The first team of inspectors arrived in Damascus on 1st October, and the OPCW-UN Joint Mission in Syria was established on 16 October. The mission recorded several early successes ahead of set target dates, including submission by Syria of a complete declaration of its chemical weapon stocks and sites, the destruction of all unfilled chemical weapon munitions, and the functional destruction of production facilities. What this means is that Syria is no longer able to produce chemical weapons, a significant milestone that was reached only 1 month after the Executive Council's decision. The Council moved quickly to agree a detailed plan of destruction in a decision taken on 15 November. This key decision has called for the removal of all chemical weapons from Syria in accordance with a request by the Syrian government for destruction outside the country. The decision entailed putting into place complex arrangements for the transportation and destruction of Syrian chemical weapons, arrangements that have required unprecedented levels of international support and coordination. The Russian Federation and the United States have provided a substantial amount of material and equipment for the implementation of this decision by Syria. There have been well-publicized delays in Syrian shipments of chemicals to the port of Latakia, where they are being loaded onto Danish and Norwegian vessels. These delays have been due to a variety of reasons, including the security situation in the country. Nearly 2/3 of all chemicals have now been moved out of the country. It's important that the remainder is shipped out as a matter of urgent priority if we are to fall within the range of the mid-2014 destruction deadline. I also hope that the successful completion of this mission will help make some progress in the international efforts to find a political solution to the wider conflict in Syria. The Convention represents our collective abhorrence as the international community of poison as a means of warfare. It represents an ideal that we must seek to preserve and strengthen for all future generations. This, in essence, is our mission in the future. The success of the Convention is largely based on its near universal recognition and adherence to it by our membership representing 190 member states. Only 6 states are outside of the Chemical Weapons Convention regime. Despite the international community having progressed in developing both law and structures of security that are unprecedented, long-festering international disputes and unresolved regional conflicts testify to the fact that we have a long way to go before claiming a measure of perfection in the manner the international security system operates. We also need to remember that international treaties come with clearly defined parameters. International organizations are neither designed nor resourced to undertake on their own the challenging tasks of restoring peace and security. They operate within clearly defined boundaries. Any exceptional contingency operations that are assigned to them need to follow affirmative policy directions as well as the necessary resources to be given by their masters, which are the state parties or the member states. This reality check, however, should not obscure the fact that the international community has made great strides in creating, as imperfect as they might seem, structures of global governance that are unprecedented and which quietly but steadily continue to make a difference in the way we go about making our world a better place to live. This framework has evolved over a long period and has been built brick by brick in an orderly and structured fashion. A key feature of the system is that under international law, every nation is free to choose which international agreements it will join based on its sovereign decision. Countries will join international treaties based on the desire to work for the common good, on encouragement from friends, through persuasion, and by heeding international public opinion. In this context, universality is one of the necessary conditions for a world free of chemical weapons. Unless each and every country of the world joins the Convention, there cannot be a complete assurance that the threat of chemical weapons has been eliminated forever. I do not believe that allowing exceptions to the global ban against chemical weapons serves the interests of the international community. Thus, states that choose to remain outside the regime would find themselves increasingly isolated from the mainstream. The CIS countries should assume the same legal prohibitions which all other states have voluntarily accepted. The attention that the Nobel Peace Prize has generated in relation to chemical disarmament will, I hope, compel states not yet party to the Convention to reconsider their position or to speed up internal processes that they may have already initiated to accede to the treaty. While at this stage, the universal application of the Convention has emerged as an important issue, there are other aspects of our work where we need to build on the progress to make the Convention a stronger deterrent against chemical weapons. Effective domestic implementation of the Convention is one such area. All of our states parties must possess the ability to prevent and, if needed, to prosecute any individuals or entities who breach the Convention's rules. This crucially covers the possible misuse of toxic chemicals for criminal or terrorist purposes. Establishment of administrative structures and effective enforcement of the required legislation translates into security enhancement for state parties themselves and for other members. More broadly, the aspect that will demand considerable readjustment in our work has been triggered by our success in eliminating chemical weapons stockpiles. A major share of our resources has so far been devoted to this goal. With the verified elimination of the declared chemical weapons stockpiles in sight, the question of OPCW's future priorities has become salient. The Convention is not simply about destroying declared stockpiles or conducting industry verification. It's a convention that is and must remain a permanent barrier against chemical weapons. As a treaty with verification and related transparency and confidence-building measures at its heart, preventing the re-emergence of chemical weapons will require a long-term and sustained commitment. The transition for the OPCW impacts both the substance of our work and the structure of the technical secretariat. on substance, verification, and its interrelationship with advancing science and technology stand out. Industry verification under the Convention and trade data monitoring are the most concrete non-proliferation tools of the regime. We need to keep them under review and bring about improvements and adjustments where and when necessary. Also related to the verification function is the imperative for us to preserve our knowledge and expertise. Chemical weapons are not only dangerous, but they are also complex. The expertise in this area is diminishing as chemical weapons programs have been phased out. This is the same expertise that is needed in getting rid of chemical weapons, and the art, if it can be described as such, is fast disappearing. Science and technology underpin the operational articles of the Convention and are central to the OPCW's future priorities. We fortunately have the benefit of an expert body called the Scientific Advisory Board, which plays a crucial role in advising me on science and technology issues. We need to adequately support its work together with a more aggressive propagation of the norms of the Convention amongst the scientific communities through education and outreach. The regional conference held last week in Buenos Aires was the first on its series to raise awareness among academia and scientific communities. We also aim to improve our ongoing programs in the context of international cooperation and assistance and protection. The threats associated with the use of chemical weapons by non-state actors, including terrorists, have created a renewed interest in the OPCW's coordination of emergency assistance to state parties and capacity building activities for prevention. Organizations' ability to respond adequately to these challenges depends not only on the provision of emergency assistance, but also on effective coordination with various agencies in the field. We are in the process of working closely with relevant agencies in order to develop and sustain an effective joint response mechanism. I can sum up our future challenges as the imperative to make the global prohibition on chemical weapons truly universal and its permanence unshakable. The OPCW's progress and successes represent the strong international consensus against chemical weapons. This united stance is informed by a tragic history leading to the firm determination of the international community to prevent its recurrence. The Convention and the OPCW stand out as examples of successful multilateralism. Our state parties have dealt with difficult challenges in a spirit of constructive cooperation and found solutions through their willingness to compromise. We see the results of this commitment translating into progress on a daily basis. We must together preserve this unity as we prepare to take our organization into a challenging future. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Director General, for your speech. I think the students got a lot of new and substantial information about the issue of prohibition of weapons, chemical weapons. Thank you very much.